My name is Kristan Weisdack, and I am the CEO and founder of BehaviorWorx of Southwestern PA, where we work with families and professionals to help them whether they're frustrated, working with children with behavioral concerns, or they're discouraged because their child has reached a certain plateau and they know that they have so much more potential. So what we do on our channel is try to create and envision a world of holistic health and different approaches that people could be taking that really aren't on the radar of a lot of people out there in the public. So I am so happy to interview Pamela Barton today. And she and I spoke last week and connected over a few different things, which is really, really great to find more people that are in that holistic wellness space. So welcome so much, Pamela. And if you can introduce yourself to those that don't know you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy that we get to chat today. So, my name is Pamela Barton. I'm located in Canada, in Ottawa, and I help busy people, busy parents, frustrated, stressful parents, entrepreneurs, whoever has a super busy life, move from tired and overwhelmed to energetic and productive, right? I think we all want to always show up as our best and do the work that we are meant to do, and sometimes we just don't feel like it. And especially the last couple of years sort of have contributed to even more, fatigue and frustration, with the world in general and with how things go. So we all kind of need to, course correct a little bit and take care of ourselves and our bodies so that we can actually accomplish all the amazing things that we want to accomplish and take care of our kids and, be the role model that we want to be.
Yeah. And while some of that, talking about this wellness and being tired, one of the things that you and I had really connected on is gluten and celiac disease, because you and I shared a little bit about our stories and how, in our household, we're gluten-free, dairy-free, soy limited. But you also shared a little bit about your journey in exploring your diet and things. So can you talk a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah, sure. So my journey started about 10 years ago, after my first child was born, when all of a sudden my health really deteriorated. And I had thyroid problems and I was put on medication, and I had really this debilitating fatigue where I just wanted to be on the couch all day. And I didn't really feel like getting up and doing many things. And here I was with a newborn, and I really struggled to, keep the baby happy and keep me happy. And so I set out to find ways to get better because I was really frustrated with the way things were. And I came across the piece of nutrition as something that I could explore. And I was open to that, and I was willing to try out different things. I had never heard of gluten-free before. That was not part of my life. And I ate regular gluten like, most of us do. And I said, okay, I'm willing to try that out. So I went gluten free and I also went dairy free. And it was a gradual process, right? So it's not like it happened overnight and everything was picture perfect, right? That's just not how it works most of the time. So it was a process. But I did see quite a bit of energy come back to me already by just cutting out these foods. So that gave me basically the encouragement to look further, like what is the problem? Because I'm not celiac, so I have not been diagnosed with celiac disease, yet I felt so much better, right? And so my journey has developed from like that discovery onto making sense of this whole thing and what's going on, and that is also what I always share with my clients and how I help them navigate this process and this journey.
Yeah, so talk to us about what healthcare provider or how did you come about finding out that you needed to be gluten-free?
Yeah, so back then I just had a regular MD who was putting me on medication, right? Because I had postpartum care, and so that's what they did. They just put me on medication. And yes, that helped initially, but the effects weren't long lasting. So the fatigue kind of returned. And so I didn't have any other person at that point that I could talk to about that. So I was really on the internet most of the time. And it was funny because exactly the time I was looking for it, there was a gluten summit put on by Dr. Osborne at that time. And I was like, hey, I'm going to attend this because I want to know what is this gluten thing and, what is behind all this. So it was a 3-day intensive. So it was quite the lot of information and quite the time that I spent. But I was fascinated by that. And I learned so much about gluten and why it can be a problem these days, even if you're not celiac. And I was really hooked by that. So that really inspired me to really dive deep into this whole topic and what's behind it and who should and should not try it and so on and so on. And that's kind of what sparked my second career choice to go back to school and study holistic nutrition. Because I also wanted to know the science behind it, right? I wanted to know that it's just not someone made up a great story that we're all going to follow, but I wanted to know that, hey, is there science behind it and, what's going on? And so that really got me intrigued and that got me put on that path that I'm on right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it aligns with our topic this week that we have had on our Facebook channel is that dairy free as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so we even try to educate people about the brands that are available out there and that taste good, because it's really difficult as you're making that transition to gluten-free and dairy-free, and you're looking at maybe a more organic lifestyle, eating more whole foods. So just for our viewers, if you would say, what are some of your favorite dairy-free brands? If you could tell them, now I know it might be a little bit different because you're in Canada, but what are some of your favorite dairy-free brands as well?
Yeah, so let me just start with a little story because going dairy free was a bigger struggle for me because 10 years ago, there weren't that many products out there that were dairy free. So it has only evolved and really developed that market in recent years. So when I was having this challenge, no more cheese, no more milk, no more yogurt, no more this, there was not a whole lot that I could find in the supermarket. So going dairy free back then was a real struggle for me because I liked cheese. I realized that I was cooking a lot with cheese too, cheese over everything and then put in the oven. I didn't realize before that I used so much cheese. And now that I was not supposed to have it, there were no alternatives. So that was tough. And it took me much longer to go dairy free just because of that. But now that I can, and now that it's so much easier because we have almost replacements for everything, it is actually not a big deal. And I don't crave the real dairy anymore at all. I don't need it at all. So that is super encouraging. And it's great for my health also because I tend to get super bloated when I eat dairy. And now I have a really flat stomach again, and I didn't exercise. So that was kind of cool, So there are little things that happen when you try these things. So yeah, which brands? So here in Canada, we have Silk, and you probably have Silk too.
Yeah, we do.
I really like the almond-based yogurt, vanilla yogurt. That's one of my favorite, and I have that for breakfast. I put it in my shakes. We also have cashew drinks now, probiotic cashew drinks that I really like. That can replace, like the kefir, the milk kefir that I used to drink. So it's a brand called Forager that we have here, and they make super delicious cashew-based drinks. And then I tend to rotate all those lovely milks that Silk does. They have cashew, they have almond, they have coconut. And luckily, I have no issues with nuts, so I can really rotate them. And that's what I like to do, just to give myself and my family always a different taste. That's also what dairy can give you. It tastes the same, right? All the time. But here, when you start rotating nut milks, you get different flavors, and I really enjoy that. So for yogurt, it would be, as I said, almond-based Silk, but we also have a brand called Rivera, and they're dairy-free. There are coconut-based ones out there. Liberté, I think, does that. Might be Canadian, I'm not sure. And yeah, and then those new products with cashew. And there are also now plant-based sour creams, although they don't really taste like sour cream. But with a stretch of imagination, if you put lots of other things in it, you can convince yourself it's fine, right? And there's more shredded cheese now. So I like Earth Balance, for example, shredded cheese, vegan cheese. We have lots of artisanal cheeses here in Canada now, where little mom and pop full cheeseries are creating things and selling those. So I'm really excited about that, because it really has the market has evolved quite a bit, and there's no need to buy dairy anymore if you don't want to. So that's very encouraging.
Right. And we have that So Delicious brand. And I don't know,
Yes, so
just for our
delicious.
viewers, So Delicious has been
Yes.
really helpful because they have they have yogurts that I really enjoy. They also
Mhm.
have ice creams that are
Ice
really,
creams.
oh,
Yeah, they're good. They're good. Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, so delicious. We have that too. It's amazing. Yeah.
mhm. But one of the things that I love that you said is that you realize you become almost a more intuitive eater. Once you realize, at least for myself, that's what happened. I became a more intuitive eater because I realized, ooh, when I eat that, my belly doesn't feel really good. Or I notice that I can't sleep at night when I eat gluten, or my thoughts are racing. So one of the things that I did that helped me as I started on this journey is it's really simple, it's just a food mood journal. So, and
Yes.
I encourage some of the adults and some of the if they have older adult children that I work with, just take down notes of whatever you eat and drink for 3 days and how you feel afterwards. Because it really makes you more, at least for me, it makes you more in touch with your body. And so, are other people in your family on that journey too? Or who else is on that with you? Anybody?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm completely with you there. Food and mood journals are essential, and all my clients who come, they fill out a food and mood journal, because we do need to raise awareness. Because we tend to just mindlessly eat. We eat what we find in the fridge, when we find it. We're not necessarily aware unless we make it a mission to pay attention. So in my household, since I'm the one who makes all the meals, I'm usually the one who says what we're eating. Luckily, everybody follows along without complaining, and my kids they're raised that way. They don't even know any other way. So luckily, they don't complain too much. Sometimes when it gets too vegetable heavy, they complain, but then I give them a little bit more carbs, and then they're happy again.
Mm-hmm.
We do have regular fights over broccoli, which I think is a good fight to have, like you emptied the broccoli and I didn't get enough. So, like this is great to have as a problem. So I'm really lucky there. My husband also struggles with some food sensitivities. He can't have dairy either, for example. So that works perfectly because we're both dairy free. And funny enough is we just recently discovered that he also can't have yeast. So I used to make my own bread, or I still do. And I have like a sourdough starter, with wild yeast in it. And he would start sneezing every time he ate that bread. And I was like, why are you sneezing? Because at the beginning we thought he has a cold, but then he always had a cold. So I said, that can't be a cold, because also you feel fine. So what is it? And so we figured just out recently, we figured out that it's actually the wild yeast. So, and he was sneezing, that was his symptoms. So sometimes it's interesting to play detective of what's going on, because we can trace quite a lot of symptoms back to food, and when we eliminate them, we start to feel differently. So
Mm-hmm.
that's fascinating.
Right. So talk a little bit about, because now we've seen, and this is kind of one of the things that we talked about last week, we've seen these memes pop up on Facebook now. Bread has been good for 5,000 years. What's different? So if you can talk about why our bodies are not able to process these things.
Yeah. So bread was different 5,000 years ago. So that is actually the truth. Just because they use different grains. They use different, ways of planting and harvesting. They didn't use any pesticides because it wasn't necessary or not available, right? So sometimes, yes, they had failed crops and then they had a famine, right? So that would happen. But these days, we make sure that doesn't happen and we spray lots of stuff on it. And we breed other types of wheat. We make it more resistant, more drought resistant. We make it more germ resistant so that we make sure that we always have, the amount that we need. And that is a problem in itself. So now you could argue that, oh, it might be the pesticides and not the grain, and that is still something that we need to explore scientifically down the road, because yes, there might be truth to it that it's actually the pesticides who cause all these problems, and it's not per se the wheat. But it can also be both, because the wheat does differ from like 5,000 years ago. It's a completely different plant nowadays with a higher yield, with an altered genetic material, right? So that can cause problems. And we know from studies that for everybody, not just the ones who have like celiac, wheat is now very hard to digest for everybody. So it takes away a lot of digestive energy. So that's why lots of people feel super tired when they eat, big loads of bread, for example, or pizza. Everybody needs a nap after that, right? And that also has to do with because the body is working super, super hard to digest that, because it's not easy, right? It's a very hard to digest food product, or like a molecule to break that down. So we struggle with this in general. And yes, there are people who can digest it a little bit better. Younger people who still have lots of digestive vitality, that's what we call it, are usually doing a little bit better. And then as we get older, it gets a little harder. But that's also because our bodies start to not work so optimally anymore, right? So there are different things that can happen that all of a sudden, like wheat and grains become a problem for you when it didn't in the past. And yes, the grain is different. We consume more. That's another thing. We consume way more grains than we used to in the olden days. We have a less diversified diet these days. And if you think about it, you start your day with either cereal or toast, right? Then for lunch, you eat a sandwich, right? And then at dinner, you eat pizza, right? So you have it with every single meal. And then you have cookies in between and cake, also grain-based. So we do eat a lot of it, right? So we're exposing our body to a lot of material that it needs to work on really, really hard. And along the way, there's lots of things that can go downhill from there.
Yeah. And so it's different than it was. There's so many different things in our environment. And so talk to us about how milk has changed, because I know that, with the pasteurization process, and there's a lot of different environmental factors that are also affecting the wheat, barley, and rye that are also affecting the dairy. So can you talk a little bit about how dairy has changed as well?
Yeah, so dairy, I mean, first of all, if we think about it holistically, milk is meant to feed a baby cow, right? So the baby cow gets born at a certain weight, and I think they weigh almost a ton. So there need to be the growth hormones in that milk that can make sure that this baby cow can grow to the height it needs to grow and sustain a baby cow. So now you compare a baby cow to a human baby, right? Quite the big difference in size and also in weight, right? So we're basically using that food substance to nourish our own kids, which has the wrong ratio for the ingredients, right? Because we're not trying to raise a baby cow. Okay, then we would use milk. I mean, now you can say, okay, I'm taking goat milk because the goat milk looks more like a human baby, right? So, I mean, yes, and goat milk sometimes is better, right, for that reason. But so in order to raise a baby cow, the milk needs to contain lots of hormones. growth hormones. That's just natural substance in there. And when you basically have a cow in your backyard, you can just leave it be, and it feeds the baby, and all's good. It feeds on green grass, and it's happy, and it produces the milk that it naturally produces. So that doesn't work if you want to feed a country and a nation and you want to export milk. You have to find ways to make it more reliable and to increase the amount of milk that you have available. So nowadays, the cows don't have a whole lot of time to feed on grass. They get grain-fed diets. So it's not their natural food that they're getting these days. So they're not getting all the nutrients. So the milk is devoid of the regular nutrients it would have if the cow would eat grass. So for example, we see this in B12 production, for example, B7 production. So then what happens? We put it in after the fact, right? We fortify the milk because it's not in there anymore, right? So we feed the cows grains. They get hormones, at least in the States they do, and in Canada not so much, but still, it's still a concern. They get hormones also because they need to ensure that the cows don't get sick, right? Because then they can't sell the milk. So they get hormones to make sure they make milk faster. They get antibiotics so that they don't get sick. And so, like there's a lot we do to the cows in order to get that milk. And if we compare that with milk like 100 years ago, that was quite different. So the cow was not milked as much. The cow was outside eating grass, right? So the product was more like it would naturally be. And these days, if we buy commercial milk, we're not getting that anymore. We're getting basically a fast food product, right? And then it gets fortified with a bunch of vitamins so that it makes it more nutritious again for us. It's one way to think about it if that's a good way, but it's definitely not the way that our body prefers. Our body doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and these are all good points because, again, that's what we encourage people to do is think in holistic ways. Think about the bigger picture, and it's not just bread is bread. It's not. The practices around creating these products has changed significantly because there's more people on the earth. There's mass production. We're doing things so that we can sustain our human population growth. And so we're sustaining our food production as well. And so it's good to shed light on these things. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time, Pamela, to sit with us today and really explain this bigger picture to more and more folks, but also to help those that might be watching that have the signs and symptoms that maybe, they've tried other courses of action. They're sitting around and they're lethargic and they have racing thoughts. They're having trouble sleeping. They just generally feel run down all the time. It's good to look at getting blood work and talking to your doctor about exploring natural options to health and wellness, and take a look at what's on your plate. So any final thoughts for those that might be watching this?
Yeah, looking at your plate is, what I'm super passionate about, because for me, that's where my health journey started. And it's something that we can all do. We don't need a doctor for this. We don't need, be super educated on it. We can just look at what we're eating. And that's always the best step, raising the awareness of like, what are we doing actually from day to day? And then I would really explore the natural way before you explore medication. That's really my recommendation, because there's so much we can do and that we can't control these days. And we should reclaim that. We are not victims and need other people, tell us what to do as a first step. Okay, so first step, look at it for your own and analyze, and then make the decision who you want to reach out to help you, set you up on your way to recovery and health.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. So for any of our Canadian viewers or people that want to reach you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I work online only, so it doesn't really matter if you're in the States or in Canada, so that's the term about it. So I would suggest you go to my website because you can reach out to me directly via my website. So you go to butterflyholisticnutrition.ca, and I'm sure we can put the link in the
Yeah, we'll be sure
comments.
to provide that.
And there you can see what I'm doing, and you can reach out to me. You can schedule a free consultation with me to see if I can help you with your issue. And I have a YouTube channel where you can get lots of content, and all the links are on my website. So I would encourage you to check it out and see what you can take for yourself and implement today, and go from there.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate being able to support other people that are in that holistic space. So we will provide all the information to our viewers, and hopefully more and more people will reach out. So thank you so much for your time, Pamela.
Thank you
Take
so much
care.
for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, of course.